The story begins with a man named Dylan, also known as Bull. As his convoy moves along, cargo starts falling out of one of the vehicles. Bull gets furious at his men, yelling at them about what they're doing. They quickly gather all the cargo and set off again. But this time, their driver can't see the road ahead clearly, and he drives the vehicle straight into a river. The driver and his partner, Sean Boy, somehow manage to get out of the vehicle. Bull explodes with rage at the driver, demanding to know what he's done. The driver says they'll get it out. He promises he can pull it out, but Bull has the driver killed and thrown into the same river. The crew heads out to find divers who can retrieve the cargo from the river. Meanwhile, back in the water, something in the river devours the driver. The scene shifts to the only two divers at a diving corporation called Sea Dog, Jimmy and Clara. Clara goes to wake up their boss, Ernie. She tells him they're ready to head out for work, but Ernie breaks the news that they didn't get the bridge contract. It went to another corporation because Sea Dog doesn't have a boat. Ernie doesn't even have enough money to pay Clara and Jimmy's salaries. Clara reassures him, saying they'll survive. Times will change. A little while later, Bull shows up. He asks Clara who the owner is. He needs to speak with him. Clara brings Ernie out. Bull and Ernie talk privately. Bull tells Ernie that his friend accidentally drove a car into the river, and there's some cargo in that car that he needs. When Ernie asks what's in the car, Bull refuses to tell him. He says in his line of work, he doesn't like too many questions. He asks Ernie about the price. Bull offers Ernie way more money than he asked for, telling him to just do the job and don't ask any questions. Ernie accepts the deal. But Clara isn't happy about it. She wants to at least know who they're working for. Ernie tells her to look, if they don't take this job, he'll have to sell all this equipment to pay off his debts. Ernie shows her the money, pointing out how much they're being paid. With this money, they'll be able to buy all their equipment. Clara gets excited too. They arrive at the river. Ernie introduces Bull to his crew. But Bull isn't impressed with this crew. Ernie insists they are the best. Jimmy is the best diver in the country. Jimmy had been diving since childhood. He says he's spent half his life underwater. Clara is also a highly skilled professional diver. Both of them start suiting up and getting ready. But we learn that Bull's plan is to retrieve his cargo and then kill all of them. So Jimmy and Clara enter the river. The visibility underwater is extremely poor. There are many broken trees lying on the riverbed. Jimmy feels something large in the water, but they ignore it and keep searching for the van. The van is lying on its side in the river. They won't be able to pull it out without a crane. Bull says he just needs the cargo from inside the van. So Clara starts checking out the cargo inside the van. There are many boxes inside. Jimmy moves toward the ignition to get the van's key. But suddenly, something slams into Clara. They look around to see what it was. But the shark grabs Clara in its jaws. Her air line gets severed. Clara falls to the bottom of the river. She passes out from the lack of air. Jimmy finds her. From above, Ernie and the others pull them both out. Ernie removes Clara's helmet and brings her back to consciousness. There's a bull shark tooth lodged in Clara's suit. Bull asks how a shark ended up in this river. But Ernie explains that bull sharks live in both fresh and salt water. And from its size, they could tell it was an adult female, probably around 12 to 15 feet long. Bull tells them that they're supposed to be professional divers, so how can they be scared of a fish? He orders them to get back to work. But Ernie flat out refuses, saying that as long as that shark is in the river, his crew is not going back in the water. Which means Bull now needs to find a fisherman who can do something about this shark. After Bull leaves, Ernie asks Jimmy about the cargo inside the car. He tells him there were some boxes, but they don't know what's inside them. A little while later, Bull comes back. He's found a local fisherman who'll come by tomorrow. That night, Jimmy and Clara start talking about sharks. Jimmy's uncle lost an arm because of a shark. Jimmy's grandfather was also a great shark hunter. He explains that sharks are very difficult to catch. But if you do catch one, they're pretty tasty. But Ernie won't stop talking, drunk on alcohol. So Jimmy goes to handle him. Meanwhile, Bull asks Clara why she got into this profession. Clara says, the ocean. It is the last frontier of the earth. So few people get to see it. Only Ernie gave Clara this opportunity. No one else would hire a girl as a diver. Clara asks Bull about his life. Bull says he has a men's grooming business, and those boxes also contain grooming supplies. Clara pulls Ernie aside and tells him that something's definitely wrong. That man Bull is not trustworthy. Clara tells Ernie to take all their equipment and leave, but Ernie needs to finish this job. The next morning, the local sergeant shows up. He asks what work is going on here. He takes Bull's statement. He mentions there's also a shark in this river. Bull says they know, and they're waiting for a shark catcher named Bob. So the sergeant leaves. After that, Bob arrives with his boat. Bull tells him if he catches this shark by lunch, he'll give him a bonus. Bob needs 2 volunteers who can work with him on this. Claire was ready to do it, but Bob says no, not a woman. I need all the muscle I can get. So Jimmy volunteers. Then Bull forcibly makes his man, Sean Boy, volunteer and sends him along. Bob has a gun to kill the shark. They head out to the middle of the water and throw meat soaked in blood into the river. The shark will be attracted by the smell of blood. Bob sets up his fishing rod and waits. After a long wait, the shark gets hooked on his rod. Everyone tries to pull it out together, but the shark breaks free from the rod. They spot the shark and start firing at it, but the bullets slow down underwater. They don't hit the shark. Then the shark attacks their boat. They fire shots to drive it away. Bob grabs a harpoon, ready to attack it, but the shark rams into them, throwing all 3 of them off the boat. Jimmy somehow climbs up and pulls Sean Boy up, but the 2 of them together can't pull Bob up before the shark attacks. The shark devours Bob. Jimmy and Sean get out of the water. Ernie starts to go report all this to the police, but Bull stops him, asking where are you going, you have a job to do. But Ernie throws the money back and says the job is over. But Bull pulls a gun on Ernie, saying nothing is over until I say it is. He tells Ernie that shark or no shark, you are going back in that river. Those wooden boxes contain gold bullion stolen by Bull, and now he needs them from inside the river. Ernie asks what will happen after they finish the job. Bull says you take your money and leave, and then forget everything. They prepare a sled to retrieve the bullions so they can load the cargo onto it. They place meat on a hook on the other side of the river to keep the shark distracted for a while. Wearing their suits, Jimmy and Ernie get ready this time. Ernie doesn't want to send Clara back in. So as soon as the hook with the meat pulls tight, Ernie and Jimmy move forward into the water. The visibility inside is terrible. They open up the van, but there are at least 24 boxes here. They'll have to take them out in 2 trips. Ernie starts loading. Jimmy sets up a work lamp there. But on the other side, the shark eats the meat and swims away. Bull's man reports this to Clara. Jimmy and Ernie need to get out of there fast. They strap the boxes to the sled, but as soon as they retract the winch to pull the sled up, it jams. They'll have to reduce the load. Ernie reduces the load, but suddenly their work lamp starts shaking. That means the shark is right nearby. It attacks Ernie, but he defends himself. The gold is slowly coming up, but it gets stuck again. Ernie and Jimmy have to free it again. They try to move the log first, but it is too heavy, so they try to shift the sled itself to the side. They turn on the winch from above and push the sled out at the same time. But then the shark attacks Ernie from behind. Jimmy hits the shark and drives it away. He removes Ernie's weights and puts a knife in his hand. From above, Clara pulls him up. But the shark comes back toward Ernie and attacks him again. Ernie fights off the shark with the knife Jimmy gave him and saves himself. By now, half of Bull's gold has come out. But by the time Clara and Jimmy pull Ernie out, he's lost too much blood. He says, Clara, you got to get out of here. He tells them to run. Clara screams that they need to get him to a hospital. But Bull doesn't respond, and Ernie dies right there. Jimmy gets furious about this. He grabs a knife and charges at Bull. But they have guns. One of Bull's men puts his gun down and picks up a knife himself, saying, come on, show me how brave you are. So Jimmy throws his knife straight at the man's chest. Bull gets angry and points his gun at Jimmy. But Clara stops him, saying if you kill him, who's going to get the rest of your gold out? So Bull lowers his gun and beats Jimmy with his own hands. He says there are still 10 more boxes. Tomorrow you two will bring those out too. They tie up Jimmy and Clara. The next morning, Bull's man removes the golden tooth from Ernie's dead body. Sean Boy goes and wakes up Clara and Jimmy. Bull asks, tell me, which one of you is going into the river? Clara and Jimmy were both ready to go in. But Bull chooses Clara, saying let's see what you can do. Jimmy gets Clara ready and says today you have to be stronger than that shark. Then Bull says you are gonna stay down there until every one of those boxes is accounted for. He tells her to work fast and go home. But if you try any tricks, I'll kill your friend and cut your hair, leaving you down there with that shark. So Clara goes into the river. She reaches the van and starts loading the gold onto the sled. When the winch starts, the sled begins coming up. But the shark has also arrived there. To escape from it, Clara hides inside the van. And that's where she also finds a gun. But the shark starts attacking from inside the van. Clara gets out of the van and locks it shut. The shark is now trapped inside the van. So both the gold and Clara make it out. Clara gives the gun to Jimmy. Bull starts checking his gold. Now they're going to kill Clara and Jimmy. Bull walks over to them and says, "Sorry, we can't leave you two running free." He holds them at gunpoint. But just then, the police sergeant shows up, asking what's going on here with guns. He orders them to drop their weapons. Clara says they're hostages. But right then, Sean Boy attacks the sergeant. Taking advantage of the moment, Jimmy fights Bull's man. The sergeant shoots Sean Boy. Then Bull shoots the sergeant. Clara also shoots Bull's man with her gun. But she runs out of bullets. Clara hits him with a diving helmet. Meanwhile, the shark has gotten out of the van. Bull grabs another gun and moves toward them. But Clara and Jimmy jump into the water. Bull gets in the boat and goes to the middle of the river. He waits, knowing Clara and Jimmy will have to come up for air. But Clara surfaces from behind his boat. Jimmy surfaces far away. So Bull fires shots at him. Jimmy goes back underwater, but blood starts flowing from his leg. So Clara shakes the boat and knocks Bull down. Bull swims back toward the boat. He points his gun at Jimmy. But Clara dives down and pulls him underwater. Jimmy takes advantage and gets out. He's been shot in the leg. He spots the shark and yells at Clara to run. Clara quickly climbs onto the boat. She starts it up and takes off. She quickly runs and grabs Sean Boy's gun. Clara points the gun at Bull. Bull says you won't shoot. You're not a killer. Clara replies, I'm not, but she is. The bull shark attacks Bull. It finishes him off. Jimmy and Clara survive all of this. Sometime later, a car is parked outside their office. Clara goes to check. Two people have come to meet them. One man is from the bank. The other man has come to tell them about Ernie's will. Ernie didn't have any family. But in his will, he left everything to Jimmy. The Sea Dog Company is now his. The bank had put up a $2,500 reward for information about those gold bullions. Which means this reward now belongs to Clara and Jimmy. And with that, friends, this story comes to an end. Let us know in the comments how you liked this explanation. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.